Daniela, Bonita Bermúdez, Carolina, Puerto Rico, Real de
Okay, we'll start with this. Well, reigning unified featherweight champion Amanda Serrano had this to say on Twitter. She says, while I wait for confirmation from the IBF on a unification match I'm making, Icon Fights debut. My co-manager, Pearl Gonzalez, is working on the details.
All right.
It seems that Amanda Serrano still means to dabble in the world of mixed martial arts, and I wonder that that's not a gamble given what she's attempting to do in the squared circle, these periodic, sporadic appearances in the octagon. If things are to go sideways, if things don't go according to plan, according to Hoyle, in what way might that manifest itself in the squared circle? Or is it that the level of competition that Amanda is facing in the octagon is so pedestrian that it can't possibly affect what she's trying to do in the boxing ring? I really don't know. It's ambitious. It's ambitious to say the least, to attempt to unify titles against the other champions in your division as a boxer, whilst at the same time
moonlighting as an MMA fighter,
trying to garner more experience in the octagon.
It is.
This Icon Fighting Federation is a fledgling federation. I guess that whatever Amanda had going on with Combate Americas is all but done with. No news on anything happening with that, and this is a separate fighting federation.
Looks like a new one.
Not sure on what platform would a combat sports fan be able to see these Icon fights. You know, where do you go? You know, you go to Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 7, DAZN, Showtime, Fox. I mean, where do you go?
UFC Fight Pass.
Amanda still wants to fight Katie Taylor. At least that's what she says.
Okay.
I'm not holding my fucking breath to see that fight.
But she said that's one of her goals.
The sport of boxing being the way it is, the door is never fully closed to what possibilities are out there. I'll admit it's a possibility, though the probability of it happening, how plausible it is, I don't see it happening. Just in keeping with the theme of boxers crossing over into the world of mixed martial arts, the world's greatest woman boxer, Claressa Shields, is set to fight Brittany Elkin in a highly anticipated Professional Fighters League MMA debut on June 10th. And see, there's the problem.
A problem.
The world's greatest woman boxer. Is that what Claressa Shields is?
What?
We'll get into that.
We will.
So Claressa is fighting a journeywoman level opponent in the octagon, and there's no harm, no foul in that, because this is her MMA debut after all. She's not expected to take on some killer, and this endeavor isn't a cash grab per se like Maymac was, where you got a prominent boxer and a prominent mixed martial artist meeting each other in a one-off to make a lot of money on one night off one card. No, this is a serious endeavor for Claressa. She's trying to make it in the world of mixed martial arts. Thus, she's going through the proper channels and going about things the right way. She's fighting Brittany Elkin, who sports a professional record in mixed martial arts of 3 wins, 6 losses, and no draws. She's coming off of 3 consecutive losses. And it's just like boxing, you know. Your first couple of fights, you're not going in there fighting killers. That's not the norm. That's not the bar of standard. Don't let fighters like Vasyl Lomachenko and Claressa Shields in boxing, Katie Taylor, don't let these kind of fighters fool you into thinking that every amateur is going to walk into the sport of pro boxing taking on seasoned fighters, seasoned killers, and world champions, fighters of that caliber, their first couple of fights. That's not normalcy in the sport of boxing, and that's not normalcy in the sport of mixed martial arts. The fight makes sense for Claressa.
Then what's the problem?
The problem is you got periodicals, journos, blowing smoke up everybody's ass, calling Claressa Shields the greatest woman boxer to ever lace him up, when that's not unanimous. That's not the consensus. Some pound-for-pound lists floating around right now, some of them, have Katie Taylor, ranked as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter. Some have Claressa. Others have Amanda Serrano.
It all depends on who you ask.
But when you have journos saying stuff like that...
Like what?
Claressa is the greatest woman boxer to ever lace him up, so what's it say about women's boxing if she goes in there and gets her fucking ass handed to her in her pro debut or a couple of fights down the line? How far back could this endeavor set the sport of women's boxing with the Gentiles here in America, with the casual observers who don't take the time and attention to give fighters and their situations adequate consideration, that you can be a great boxer, but that don't mean you're going to be a great MMA fighter. And the same is true in reverse, because they're very different disciplines. They're very different sports.
They are.
You get an elite level MMA fighter in a boxing ring, they might get their ass handed to them. And the same is true in reverse. If this is the greatest woman boxer to ever lace them up, what do you think people are going to say if she goes in there and gets battered?
What do you think they're going to say about the sport of women's boxing?
Claressa's already painted herself into a corner in many ways, to where if she ever falters in a boxing ring or the octagon, given the size of her ego and the way that she's been carrying on, especially as of late, well, nobody's going to really feel sorry for her. When the journos go as far as calling her the greatest woman boxer to ever lace them up, even if a rather large contingent across the pond, across the Atlantic Ocean, don't agree with that sentiment, that Claressa is the best woman boxer to ever box.
Nah.
Even if they don't agree with that sentiment, the people here stateside, a smaller contingent, a much smaller contingent, they view her in that scope. They view her through that lens. To them, she is the ambassador for the sport. Claressa has accomplished quite a bit in the sport of women's boxing, though I maintain my original assertion that her becoming undisputed at middleweight and junior middleweight is not as difficult as it would be at the lighter weights, where the divisions are more densely populated. There are that many more fighters you have to go through, that many more world champions with varying skill sets, different characteristics that an elite level fighter must adapt to overcome. It's just a different kettle of fish at the lower weights than what you see at 154, what you see at 160 and 168. But the Gentiles make no light of this when they talk about Claressa Shields' accolades. They don't talk about how many of those titles were vacant, how many of those titles weren't actually being held by world champions. They conveniently gloss over this to revel in Claressa Shields' accomplishments, to represent her as the greatest woman boxer to ever lace him up, because, well, no woman boxer before her was undisputed in 2 divisions, right?
Right.
But at the same time, upon further diagnosis, we see how that went about. We see how that happened. It's that much easier to become a 2-time undisputed champion at 160 and 154 because there are barely any girls there to fight.
Stop me when I tell a lie.
And before you go calling me a hater for stating simple matters of fact, that there are barely any girls in those divisions where Claressa has campaigned, bear in mind, I don't want her to fail. I want her to succeed in the octagon. That's because I don't want to have to deal with the blowback from the casuals, the slack-jawed gawkers, the spectators in what are these spectator sports, using Claressa Shields as the butt of every joke for faltering in the octagon. That would be a misrepresentation of the sport of women's boxing.
It would.
And I don't want to see that. Moreover, I don't want her losing in the octagon to fuck up the Marshall fight, but it could.
She gets fucked up in the cage. You don't think that'll have an adverse effect?
When you get right down to it, I'd rather see Claressa find all the success that she can find in the cage, that PFL league, than to see her falter. I'd rather that she raise her marquee value. Maybe she prices herself out of the Marshall fight, but I'd rather see that than to see her falter against some novice journeywoman in the octagon because of the blowback. Because this is bigger than just Claressa Shields.
It's not just about her.
She's supposed to be the best of the best, the best of the rest of the girls that are in this part of the world. And if she falters,
It won't just affect her.
in other news, mixed reports continue to come out in reference to the Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury undisputed heavyweight title fight. Tyson Fury on the Anthony Joshua fight. I think it will 100% happen, and I think we're going to know within the next couple of days where and when. I'm confident this fight's going to get made in the next few days. Got Tyson Fury saying that. He's had something like a full 180 from just a few days ago, whereas his promoter, one of them, Frank Warren, he's a little bit more pessimistic. Now, Frank isn't outright saying that he thinks the fight isn't going to happen. What he is saying is that he doesn't believe Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury will happen until late August or September. He pointed out that AJ's trainer, Rob McCracken, will be in Tokyo with Team Great Britain for the Olympic Games from July 23rd to August 8th. And I don't see why that should be looked at as some kind of a snafu, some kind of a pitfall, when July 23rd, that's roughly the end of July, the last week of it, or at least the last 2 weeks, something like that. If the fight with Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury takes place in early July or mid-July, there's time to have the fight, get that out of the way, then Rob can shape up and ship out and go help Team Great Britain in the Tokyo Games. I mean, I don't see why so much is being read into that, and I can only make the inference that the people that don't want this fight to happen, essentially the people that don't want to be wrong, they don't want to be wrong about everything they've been telling their subscribers here on YouTube. Those people, those subscribers, anything at all, anything that sounds like it might be a problem, anything that sounds like it might be a hiccup, a roadblock, a snafu, they latch onto it for dear life because they've been running around telling every man, woman, and his dog that Wilder was going to stop this fight from happening, that Tyson Fury was legally obligated to give him a third fight, even though all the actual news, all the actual reports circulating said otherwise. And now they don't want to be wrong, so they'll latch onto any bit of information, no matter where it's from, put their own spin on it.
To save face.
But what you really need to know is that very recently, Tyson Fury touched down in Las Vegas. He's touched base with Jorge Capetillo. He's currently in camp. What do you think he's currently in camp to do?
What?
The evidence of this is coming by way of Tyson Fury's own social media accounts.
I'm not jumping to conclusions here.
Just giving it to you straight. It's the only way I know how to give it to you. I've come across any number of rumors in association with the fight. I don't spend a lot of time on those rumors, though. Inside information does stay on the inside.
To me, it does.
People say things. People talk. You know, I'm hearing rumors and rumblings that Anthony Joshua has conceded to letting Tyson Fury come out last. I'm hearing rumors that Anthony Joshua has conceded to allowing Fury's name, allowing him to have his name go where he wants it to. And my interpretation of these rumors and rumblings, if they check out, if the story sticks, is that Anthony Joshua really wants this fight. That's what that's a testament to. That's what that's evidence of, if the rumors check out. The thing is, they don't have to check out for me to know that Anthony Joshua and his people want this fight. They've always wanted this fight, and I've always thought that. There's not much sense in spending time on those rumors.
All the optimism for the fight was coming from the Joshua side.
And all of the pessimism and negativity thus far has been coming from the Fury side of things, though both sides seem to be more or less on the same page here, with the exception of Big John Fury, just a little bit, though Big John Fury, I reiterate, is not the one making this fight. He sat on the couch blowing hard because that's what blowhards do.
Never mind him.
And never mind his negativity. And never mind the negativity coming from the usual suspects either, because we know there's an agenda at work with those guys.
Care. To be honest, I'm gonna just put it out there. Even if Fury didn't cheat, I'm gonna back Wilder to the hills and back. You know why? Because they will do the same thing with Tyson Fury, regardless. So I don't give a shit whether it's true or not, because I'm gonna be on code.
And what code is that?
You know what I mean?
No.
And it is what it is. I'm not brainwashed. I'm not delusional. I'm just me.
You're just sick. Does this individual seem like a mentally stable individual to you? I've been telling you guys for 3 going on 4 years that this isn't about boxing to some of these guys.
I'm gonna stay on court.
The guy in so many words just said that he doesn't care if Tyson Fury cheated or if he didn't cheat. He's going to perpetuate this
Conspiracy.
propaganda, this narrative, regardless, due to some misguided code he thinks he has to carry out.
The guy's a lunatic.
They claim that Wilder's water was tampered with, though if the water was tampered with, it would have had to have been tampered with by JD's, who's seen holding Deontay Wilder's water. Not Mark Breland, who was sacked, who was fired. JD's was there when Tyson Fury's hands were wrapped. JD's was the one holding Deontay Wilder's water in plain sight. But Mark Breland is the fall guy.
There's a lot wrong with this theory.
And there's a lot wrong with the people that choose to run with it.
I had a fucking nickel for every time I told you that.
But like I told you, like I've been telling you, these guys are the warm-up act, the comic relief while we wait for the real news to come out.
So have a laugh, sit back, and enjoy the show.
Care. To be honest, I'm gonna just put it out there. Even if Fury didn't cheat, I'm gonna back Wilder to the hills and back. You know why?
Because you're sick?
Because they will do the same thing with Tyson Fury, regardless. So I don't give a shit whether it's true or not.
Knew that already.
Because I'm going to be on code.
You're a fucking mental patient.
You know what I mean? And it is what it is. I'm not brainwashed. I'm not delusional. I'm just me.
You're just miserable.
Try and understand. Those who propagate this theory here on YouTube have a very obvious motive. A financial incentive to do so. They sell the controversy, and by the time that people find out the controversy is no controversy, they will have made their money already. Thus, it's easy to understand why certain YouTubers decide to spread false information on a regular basis. But why individuals like this choose to be on board with that misinformation?
Knowing it's misinformation.
Why individuals such as this choose to be on board with these kinds of behaviors, well, that denotes something else entirely.
And I've actually spoken to this head case before.
Here on this channel, which he must have frequented because as soon as he saw that I went live, he decided to make an appearance some time ago. This individual is completely linear-minded. He lives vicariously through fighters, thereby explaining his infatuation with Deontay Wilder, who he'd like to believe was the victim of an injustice, though due to him identifying with Deontay so much, he doesn't really care if he was a victim of an injustice or not. He just said he doesn't care if Tyson Fury actually cheated or if he didn't cheat. He's gonna stand by his man.
I have a hell of a hard time reasoning with someone like that.
Plus, someone like that is beyond reasoning. He has no reasoning skills.
You noticing a pattern yet?
This theory has been talked up for over 12 months now. It's been a year since the Wilder versus Fury rematch, and no matter how many individuals have come forward and debunked this theory for how ridiculous it is, these guys stick with it.
Even one of the Charlo brothers said it's all bullshit.
Wilder's fellow PBC fighter said, there's no conspiracy, he just got his fucking ass kicked. Several professional boxers. I mean, we're not just talking about fight fans arguing amongst themselves. We're actually talking about the pros themselves. Yet individuals like this Mo boxing fellow, he's willing to keep up appearances even if the theory isn't true, even if the theory isn't real.
He's tantamount to a petulant child throwing his toys out of the pram.
How can anybody in their right mind still be crying about this stuff 12 months, over 12 months later, when Wilder hasn't come forward with any evidence of anything? There is no third fight. There is no legal obligation for Tyson Fury to face Deontay Wilder for a third time. Deontay Wilder has had a full year to pursue legal action for what can only be described as felony assault with a deadly weapon, yet the only legal action he's taken is mediation arbitration for a financial compensation package, for a payout.
As a result of the third fight not happening.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to let it go.